to the divine Jupiter. And I've done journeys for people, on the internet, students and so forth, people who've enrolled for readings. Because if you've got a weak Jupiter in your chart, you can really despair at a time like this and feel, oh, I'll never get anywhere. But realistic and genuine visionary connection with Jupiter, much more powerful than remedies, in my opinion, puts you in touch with Jupiter the god, or any planetary god, particularly at a time when the human connection has been reduced or cut off for our divine learning. Okay, so let's look a bit at the divine nature of Saturn and then Pluto. So, Saturn. Visualize Lord Shani, Lord of Karma, stern and exacting, who can bring you golden reaping if you respect what he represents. And he is originally an agricultural deity, remember. And the point is, it is we who create the suffering under Saturn's influence, not him. We create the suffering because of our blinkers imposed on us and held there determinedly by us. So when we are in that state of consciousness, we experience Lord Shani's influence as limitation and obstruction, decay and suffering, death and sorrow. And of course it all depends on the signs and houses that Saturn occupies and rules in your chart, exactly how you'll experience him. And the level of our experience of the divine nature of Saturn defines the boundaries of our consciousness. And so often we can be, say, born into a very low consciousness family, or be in some very low conscious social setting. And, that would be a typical Saturn negative imprisoning experience. But the whole point is Saturn will continue to, in a sense, send us suffering until we smash down those walls which should never have been there and open to the light. So we do have to face our Saturn destiny and life issues. We either have to face them here in this life or after it. There is not escape. So positively, the divine nature of Saturn, I have found, is actually occult and intuitive. He's into meditation and transcendence. He is actually ethical magic. He is enduring. He is needed work that must be done, proper regimen to properly support our life. And yes, golden reaping, ethical, proper authority. Okay, let's look at Pluto's divine nature. Well, Pluto is, in a sense, like with the outer planets and the nodes, an activator of the soul. And so, Jupiter, Saturn and Chiron, Uranus and Neptune, of course, as well as the nodes, are these outer planet activators of our soul. It is not true to say that Pluto correlates to the deepest emotional security patterns in all of this. It isn't true. Pluto's much more than that. It's about getting into contact with the energy gifts described by the Pluto myths of ancient human consciousness. The mythic keys to Pluto's are the guides to the nature of his energy. And Pluto's energy is not about security. Pluto's energy is about overturning false security and creating a valid spiritual energetic consciousness security. And Pluto's growth pace, or our evolution can be very, very different. It can be cataclysm. It can be very slow. And we will have big problems if we resist the evolutionary intent. I have known people who just turn into robots because they can't embrace Pluto. And I want to say that the Abyss and Kether are the true keys to Pluto. The Abyss and Kether are the true keys to Pluto. In other words, in my opinion, we experience Pluto energy, and particularly during Pluto transits and progressions and so forth, by going down into the abyss. And so, as I said, the abyss is beyond this world, a place of past things and secrets, and as an angelic keeper of the abyss. And we have to go down into the abyss to face it all the things I mentioned, the darknesses, the guilts, the secrets, the sufferings. We have to do that, and if we do it properly, we will arise empowered. And so the point is that when we go down into the abyss in magical terms. And once we've completed that experience, Pluto no longer manifests through the abyss. Once we've completed the experience, Pluto manifests as Kether, our crown chakra, connected to the divine light. And in my opinion, the very best definition of Pluto is the abyss leading to Kether. And only then, and when that's done, can we experience the divine light of Pluto as Kether, our crown chakra. Okay, we've talked a lot about Saturn and Pluto, but at the moment there are 3 planets in the Great Conjunction, and the third one is Ketu, the south node of the Moon. So I'm now going to focus on the understanding of Ketu's nature, and then lastly on how Ketu and Saturn combine, and Ketu and Pluto combine. So how does Ketu fit into the mix of the Great Conjunction in Vedic Sagittarius? And it's here this year in 2019, and the last time the Ketu Saturn Pluto was in Vedic Sagittarius was in 1517, 500 years ago. And what happened then? Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the cathedral door at Wittenberg, and the Catholic Church was destroyed in Northern Europe. There was Reformation. So that gives you some clue as to when Ketu combines with Pluto and Saturn. The energy is Reformation, and just I think about a week ago, Notre Dame Cathedral was burned down. Same energy, same sign, Sagittarius, about religion and other things. So what is the energy of Ketu, the south node of the Moon? Well, basically Rahu, the north node, and Ketu, the south node, are the eclipse points in the heavens, and they're both demonic energy. Rahu is the head of the demon, Ketu is the tail, the headless tail. It's malefic. It short circuits and blocks out the sun or the moon energy in our lives. And so if you have Ketu conjunct sun or moon, it is dangerous in the worldly sense, but can bring, if we can handle it, immense spiritual illumination. And if we do the right sort of things in our life, spiritual things. So what Ketu does, it immaterializes any planet it touches. But its purpose in the great divine plan, in immaterializing the energy of a planet, is spiritual, for spiritual purpose and achievement. And so at the worldly level, Ketu brings loss of power and standing, misfortune. It's a key karma from our past life. And Ketu conjunct a planet can have key psychic manifestation, but it does have the energy of catastrophe. And so people with Ketu conjunct a planet or two can live just never believing this world will be supportive. It wasn't probably at the moment they were born, and they never believe it will be. They can never feel free from impending catastrophe. So Ketu creates doubt and disturbance, alienation, and an overcritical nature which the person has to recognize and curb and get rid of. It definitely creates lack of self-confidence. I think you can see why. It definitely creates lack of self-worth. Although it's important to note that some individuals with Ketu conjunct Sun or Ketu conjunct Moon can massively overcompensate, hide the devastating lack of self-worth and confidence deep within, and really bully other people. The overcompensation thing has to be remembered. And indeed, if you have Ketu conjunct Moon, the stability of your mind isn't that good, and particularly at times of full moons and especially eclipses. But, because we grow through dealing with problems, positively, Ketu is spiritual potential. It's a spiritual offering. And indeed, it's a magical and psychic potential with often great concentration and powers. And so Ketu is anciently called in the Vedic culture the moksha karika, the salvation indicator, the liberation indicator, if only the individual can perceive the message and work to embrace it. And often this work comes about following downfall situations. And a classic downfall situation time, by the way, is the 8th house low point. So here I'm referring to psychodynamic Western astrology, and when the two predictive age points enter the 8th house and approach its low point, that is a classic for death and rebirth experience or downfall situations. And there, the Ketu nature can really destroy and then offer the possibility of winning spiritual illumination. Negatively, there's a need to ward off the macabre or alcohol situations when Ketu is strong. But it's very good for astrology and the occult, for yoga, for magic, for vision work. But note that Ketu does create a sensitive nervous system and nervous disorders. People with Ketu conjunct Sun are not strong. And it can create unhappiness and malaise, conflict and argument. So to have Ketu conjunct Sun or the Moon is a major challenge which needs to be understood along the lines that I've just spoken and healed. But Ketu is weirdness because it can also bring military success or great wealth and then take it away. It's an illumination, it's a sharp energy. It can go wrong. And so, in other words, it's impelling us to embrace spiritual understanding and meaning. Some people say that Ketu defines Pluto. That's nonsense. Ketu and Pluto are separate. Ketu does not define Pluto at all. Pluto defines Pluto. And also, Ketu is our past life scripts. It's immateriality and renunciation and destruction in our life, but for spiritual purpose. And by the way, it's so important to note the ruler of the Vedic sign that Ketu occupies in your Vedic birth chart if you want to understand your destiny. This is often called the karmic suction control planet or the karmic inlet control planet. And so your talent in the present incarnation can usually be deciphered through understanding this planet, the ruler of the Vedic sign that Ketu occupies in your Vedic birth charts. And it can be very useful to have your talent defined, because often we could be brought up in a way that smashes and destroys and sullies our talent. And so it can be useful to be offered that validation. Identify it, see what it means in your life. Bring in needed emphasis, focus and strategy on the qualities of that planet. So for example, if Venus is the ruler of the sign that Ketu occupies in your Vedic birth chart, then your life and future needs to encompass an artistic dimension. And obviously there's a keynote from every other ruling planet or karmic suction planet. I mention Saturn in the blog. Oh, and by the way, the ruler of the sign that Rahu, the North Node, falls in your Vedic birth chart, is indicative of traits that need development in your life. Our life is... we arrive where Ketu is in our birth chart, the camp of the occupying army. That is where we come in from past life. And when Ketu is activated, past life scripts and past life people can appear in our lives. And in our human incarnation, in this life, we are thrown from Ketu's position across the chart to Rahu's position. And in a sense, as I said, the nodes are demons. And so there's a tremendous, almost demonic energy throwing us towards Rahu. And the big point is, unless we purify Rahu's energy, we will never get to the destination. So, to end this analysis of Saturn, Ketu and Pluto separately as divine planetary gods, and in combination, let's look at how Ketu combines with Saturn and Ketu combines with Pluto. And note in the blog accompanying this video that I've tended to express quite a bit of it in terms that would apply to your birth chart, because that's often more easy to grasp. And then you can extrapolate from that manifestation to how the Great Conjunction might express itself on the world stage and even geologically or in the weather. So how does Saturn and Ketu combine? Well, searing. Saturn is structures, even prisons that we create in our life. But when Ketu comes along, he blows those stupid walls asunder to let the light in. And we might experience the walls of our universe being smashed and pulverized with horror. But there's a divine purpose there. Sudden spiritual energetic awakening, specific past life issues crystallizing. And it's an existential crisis. It can lead people to commit suicide when it happens. And so often I find people have been pursuing the 9-to-5 career, that they were told was actually the true nature of life. Saturn Ketu, Saturn transits Ketu or vice versa in their life. And that career is over, thank goodness. And they embrace a spiritual career, ideally. Their life changes. Okay, lastly, how do Pluto and Ketu combine? Well, this is not an easy energy. So basically, I feel you're probably going to experience a past life failure to deal successfully with certain issues or relationships. And basically, that past life experience that was left unsolved and unfinished will have to be relived. And often it will be relived through an energy of personal disempowerment and disappointment. And so it will lead to huge death and rebirth experiences. And often you might have to encounter them in a state of, conditioned lack of spiritual consciousness because of your upbringing or whatever. You will relive your karmic past. And this does offer us the opportunity to raise our spiritual consciousness. It offers us fruition, rebirth, and being successful this time, in this incarnation, in this life. But you will feel loads of insecurity. You will feel you are the victim of power over. And these feelings will inescapably create Ketu-type meltdowns in your life, crises of sudden revelation and revolution, and often horrifically difficult opportunities for growth in spiritual perception as well, growth in empowerment. And as a final note, take into account, especially if in addition to your Saturn Ketu conjunction, there is a planet square the nodal axis. Because a planet square the nodal axis indicates a missed step that wasn't got right in the previous life. And so be aware that the divine energy of that planet will insist on being taken into account in our spiritual learning in this life. So basically you can buy an astrology reading with me at my Star Wheel Astrology website, and I've got wonderful